Hello, my name is Aaron Cross, and I'm with Think Reliability. We specialize in applying root cause analysis to solve all types of problems. Today I'm providing an overview that will begin by explaining why our clients decide to partner with us as their problem-solving resource. I'll then demonstrate how our approach gets results and really cover the specifics of our methodology. And then finally, I'm going to cover what solutions we actually provide. All right, so why Think Reliability? Albert Einstein had stated that if you can't explain something simply, you don't understand it well enough. In fact, the very definition of analysis is to break something down into its parts. So we teach individuals how to break down any problem into fundamental cause and effect relationships. So you're not going to find complex algorithms, confusing acronyms, or have to memorize special terminology. Keep the approach simple and effective. By staying founded on the basic principles of systems thinking, visual communication, and cause and effect, you'll be able to minimize the frustration and confusion that can cripple your investigation. So the focus is on your problems, not the tools you're using to solve them. Another why Think Reliability would be based on our approach to solving problems. Today, in fact, you've probably heard a lot of the buzz around the term HROs, which stands for High Reliability Organizations. Organizations that are really good at avoiding significant problems while still working in a high-risk and complex environment. HROs take a systems approach to solving problems as compared to the conventional approach, where the objective is finding the root cause with the premise that if successful, you can eliminate the problem in the future. On the other hand, a systems approach is based on the premise that problem solving is about reducing risk. Here, the objective is to reveal the system of causes reflecting multiple breakdowns across your work processes, thereby exposing multiple opportunities to learn and improve. Now, what is often overlooked here is that solutions can be cumulative. For example, one solution might get you to here, compared to another solution that may be more effective, get you to here, but when you combine both of those together, you get this cumulative effect. So while you won't get to zero risk, you'll have built-in layers of protection that can still deliver zero incidents. Another reason why clients partner with us is they can no longer afford the broad generalizations that often are the output of their investigations. I think you know exactly what I'm referencing here. Problem investigations that are summed up as simply procedure not followed, poor training, or the classic human error, just to name a few. This bucket mentality reveals very little in terms of effective or even actionable solutions. You've probably heard the solution retrain or be more careful. Just a few that come to mind. Effective problem solving pinpoints and implements solutions within your work processes, not your people. If, in fact, a procedure is not followed, it is one of the causes. But another question has to follow: why? Driving this deeper analysis will move the focus around opportunities to improve work process and reveal solutions that actually prevent the problem from happening again. Another reason, with a principle-based approach, one methodology can be used for all of the problems across your organization. Okay, so no more confusion over which RCA tool to use and when to use them. No need to train on multiple methods. The principle of cause and effect doesn't change based on the type of the problem you're using or investigating, whether it be safety, environmental, customer service complaints, nor does it change based on the size of the problem. Whether it's small day-to-day troubleshooting or investigating an incident with catastrophic consequences. The approach doesn't change. Now, what is adjusted is the level of detail that's revealed and the amount of supporting evidence needed to validate. Once again, risk is the driving factor. The analysis should be captured at an appropriate level of detail to reveal solutions that address risk to your organization. So we've discussed systems thinking, the cause and effect principle. The third, visual communication, is the vehicle that drives efficiency. They say a picture's worth 1,000 words. Well, a cause map visually shows the system of causes that produce the problem. You're capturing a visual dialogue that allows you to navigate, the common miscommunication traps while changing the way people discuss specifics. Because it's visual, people can look at and point to their perspectives and see how it aligns instead of contradicts. The ability to accommodate is a powerful advantage, allowing you to leverage people's differences into more opportunities to solve problems. The result, an investigation that is both effective and efficient. Finally, one of the most cited reasons why our clients select us is because our focus is on solving problems, not selling proprietary software. Make no mistake, of course, documentation is critical, but it doesn't have to be digital. Post-it notes, for example, are an excellent hands-on tool, or if you do need an electronic format, you don't need expensive software. You already have some of the best RCA software on your computer in Microsoft Excel. We'll show you how to use the drawing functions in Excel and provide free templates for building COSMAPs and capturing a complete investigation in one Excel file. Okay, so now that I've covered the why side of our business, I want to move more into the how we drive results, explaining more the specifics of our methodology. So an important connection we already highlighted earlier was that connection back to work process. As I already had stated, problems reveal where work processes failed. So think about any process within your organization. You want to get results from that process. In other words, you want to get from point A to point B. Now, if you don't get the results, if you don't get the expected output, that's what you're calling your failures, your errors, your defects. That's a release, an outage, an injury. Point is, that's a problem, and that's where you're going to now drive this investigation, ideally, to try to identify solutions to prevent reoccurrence. Now, the key here is that you're already asking why questions, and so you'll notice, in terms of this approach, you already asked the whys. The only difference here is we're going to have you start to visually capture that discussion in terms of the cause and effect relationships. So making that visual picture, that map will start off linear, but then we also want to be able to expose other causes, other things required to produce the incident. Now the map, the fact that that builds out into multiple chains, multiple branches, what that starts to reveal is that when you have a problem, especially something that's a high severity, higher impact to the organization, you're not going to have just one breakdown that took place within your work process. You're going to have multiple breakdowns across your work processes that all had to happen to produce that incident. Well, if you reveal those, that's where we get to reveal multiple ways to solve that problem. So what this COSMAP becomes is a visual explanation for why we didn't get the desired results from the work processes. Now, if you've got multiple breakdowns, what does that mean in terms of solutions? Of course, that means multiple ways to solve the problem. Of course, the more ways you have to solve, the more effective we can be at preventing that problem from occurring. So the output from this investigation are going to be specific solutions that would then make changes to how we execute process going forward. So this is where the more thorough, the more detail-oriented we are in terms of the investigation, in terms of that analysis, the more specific the solutions, and those specific solutions changing how we execute work going forward within the organization. So essentially, using your investigation reveals lessons learned, which of course our solutions now start to change. They become best practices going forward within the work processes. Okay, so now within the COSMAPing approach, there are three key steps which you'll see line up with the three fundamental steps of basic problem solving in general. Step 1, define the problem. Step 2, analyze, and then use that to identify solutions. Now, although the three steps are fundamental, the one that organizations tend to struggle with the most is that second one, the analysis. In fact, what often happens is people identify a problem, and then what happens? They want to jump straight to solutions. So the analysis step, as you'll see, is where we're really focusing on this COSMAP as a tool to drive that more detailed, more thorough analysis. Now, in terms of problem definition, this is a critical step. A well-defined problem is key to really driving the analysis and then ultimately solutions. Where people make an error, however, is focusing on how individuals see the problem versus how the organization sees the problem. So when we go through this problem definition, we use a simple outline format that really focuses on four key questions. What's the problem? When did it happen? Where did it happen? And then that fourth question is really going to focus us on how does this problem impact the goals. Now, starting at the top, if I do ask people what's the problem, you tend to see a lot of arguments, a lot of disagreements. Everyone sees problems differently. We're actually going to use that question really to accommodate different perspectives, because where we want the emphasis to be in terms of a problem definition is really at the bottom, focusing on how does this impact the goals. Now, this is where your goals dictate your ideal state. Think about the goals of your organization. How many safety incidents do you want to have? What's your goal for production or operations? You know, what's your goal in terms of your customer? You know, you've got all of these goals already set up, so what we're going to focus on in terms of defining problems is how those problems impact your goals. If you can move the focus to the impact to your organizational goals, that's where you gain alignment. That's what also we can use to really help understand what is the risk to the organization. Is this a small problem or a larger issue? And then the third advantage is that that's what we use to actually start that analysis. So instead of starting the map with what people see as the problem, we're going to start with how the organization sees it in terms of the impact of those goals. Of course, now step 2, we're ready to start to analyze, and this is where the simple breakdown using the cause map, capturing those cause and effect relationships. So we're going to get that simple start to begin with, asking basic whys. You've probably heard of the 5 whys approach. Very simple, easy way to get started. In fact, for a small problem, that may be as far as we take it. Now, for a larger issue, the higher the impact to the organization, that's where we also have the ability to expand that simple start into multiple causes required. And this is where, as I said earlier, you get that leverage as far as solutions. More causes required, more opportunities to solve the problem. Another important component of an analysis is validating with evidence. You know, evidence dictates what did not happen, so we need evidence that we can validate with as we're going along on, in terms of revealing causes. We're going to capture on the map as well. Okay, so the analysis really 2 parts: laying out causes, validating with evidence. Now, there are other tools that become helpful in terms of reference, in terms of organizing information, timelines, diagrams, photos. Any of these others become part of a complete investigation. Ultimately, though, the drive is to identify the specific set of causes that were required to produce the incident, because then you'll see in terms of solutions, that's where we can use that information to identify all the ways to solve that problem. Okay, so when we do get to solutions, this is where that map becomes a tool we can also use to brainstorm. Now, when I say brainstorm, you notice where we're brainstorming is on the solutions. The causes we want to keep objective, focus on what did occur. Then when we get to solutions, we're looking at all the creative ways we could solve our problem. And those solutions we also attach to the visual map, you know, connecting the solution to the actual cause that it validates. Of course, lots of solutions. Some are going to be more effective than others. Some are going to be a lot easier, maybe more difficult to implement. So this is where we would then evaluate, select the best solutions, and whichever we decide are the best ones that get us to that acceptable level of risk, those are the ones we're going to implement. Those are the ones that go into the action plan. So you can see clearly we're identifying a specific cause that we're controlling and the action item that we're using to control that specific cause. Okay, so now that I've highlighted the steps of our approach, let's use an example here to kind of demonstrate the visual nature of how we lay out these cause and effect relationships. So we highlighted earlier the fundamental principle of cause and effect. What you're looking at now is our basic building block. So when we build these cause maps, this is the key tool we're using to lay out the details. We put the effect on the left and we put the cause on the right. So when you're asking why questions, as you can see, you are actually working backwards through time. So for instance, if we were to look at an incident such as the Titanic sinking, if I were to ask why did the Titanic sink? Well, the most common response we get would be the fact that the ship hit an iceberg. So there is one level of detail representing the issue. Now somebody else might actually say that the Titanic sank because of the weak rivets. You know, in other words, they're giving more of a mechanical perspective from a cause and effect standpoint. You also might have somebody else that would respond differently. Somebody else might say the reason the ship sank was because the lookout saw the iceberg late. You know, clearly they're looking at it more from the operational side. And then you also might even get the scientific perspective and say, well, you know, really the reason the ship sank was because water filled the hole. Now, which of those perspectives is right? You know, which one is right, which one's wrong? Well, clearly they're all accurate. So it's not really a right or wrong problem. And this is where the value or the benefit of this visual perspective comes in, because you now would have the ability to accommodate all of those different perspectives. So instead of that slowing things down and causing, you know, unnecessary disagreement, you know, pointless debates, we actually want to use those different perspectives to our advantage. You know, that leverage gives us more ways to solve the problem. But in order to take advantage of that, this is where we need a tool that accommodates those different perspectives. So hence, if we would have started just as we did with Titanic sank because ship hit iceberg, What we've got the ability to do, because we're capturing it visually, is to start to accommodate all of those other perspectives as well. The fact that water filled the hole is getting now more detailed on how hitting the iceberg led to the ship sinking. If we keep expanding, why did they hit the iceberg? Well, the ship hit the iceberg because the lookout saw the iceberg late. So now we're starting to easily accommodate the operational perspectives. So you have the ability to add more detail to the right, but as you can see, we can also clearly add more detail in between. So that 5 whys approach, as I have alluded to, is a great way to start. For a small problem, that may be as far as we take it. But because of the severity, because of the risk, clearly there's more opportunities to expand out. Let's take, for instance, the weak rivets. The weak rivets don't play a role in the ship hitting the iceberg, but the weak rivets do play a role in the opening and the steel seams pulling apart. Now what this does is this is where it now shows that the map is going to expand into multiple chains of causes required to produce that effect. Both of those causes are required for the holes to rip apart. Now, if both causes are required, which one of those two causes do you have to control in order to do something to reduce the risk of that effect? Well, the answer is either one. So ideally, we'd like to avoid hitting the iceberg. But even if we don't hit the iceberg, if we had a stronger design in terms of the rivets, that also still prevents or reduces the risk of losing the Titanic. So this is where you start to see that leverage as far as solutions. Now another point that we made earlier is ideally where we'd want to start is with an impact to the goals. Right now our entire focus is on keeping the ship from sinking, which is a great strategy, but are we missing out on other opportunities to mitigate risk for the organization? If we take this to the left a little bit, and had we started with that safety impact, so one of the goals impacted clearly is going to be safety related. We lost 1,500 people. Now the loss of lives is because the ship sank. But what else contributes to the loss of lives was the ineffectiveness of that rescue and the evacuation. So the fact that we didn't have enough lifeboats, you can see clearly has another chain of causes that we can now tie on, because that is going to now be causally related to the loss of those 1,500 lives. So this is just a simple start to an analysis, but what you're seeing here is the ability to expose multiple chains of causes required, capture multiple perspectives, which ultimately gives us more opportunities to solve the problem. You implement any one of those solutions, and you're going to be doing something to reduce that risk. So let's move to that risk curve. This is that curve that I referenced earlier from that systems perspective. One of the solutions, at least at this level of detail on this investigation, would be to improve our ability to identify objects in the water. So this is going to get into the lookout process. Now we would clearly have to define in more specific terms what that implies, but from a simple example here, if we implement a solution around the lookout process, that might get us to here on the curve in terms of mitigating risk. Another possible solution was around the design, using stronger rivets. Now, not to get into debating which one's more effective or ineffective at this point, but let's say option B is not as effective as that process-related solution. So you can see where that would put us on the curve. So between A and B, option B would be more effective. Now let's say we implement both solutions. Where does that put you on the curve? Well, if we implement both solutions, now you get this cumulative reduction in risk. So even if we still happen to hit the object, as I said earlier, we still have an opportunity to mitigate the risk of the sinking with that stronger rivet design. And then if you also happen to add lifeboats on top of that, now we're way out here in terms of our risk to safety. So this is where clearly we're demonstrating the more causes you reveal from your analysis, from your investigation, more opportunities to solve the problem. And so now it's just a matter of debating, which ones are the most effective. Okay, so this level of detail, this whole systems approach provides layers of protection. This is where it comes back to what we said earlier in terms of the one approach adjusted to risk. So you've got your small day-to-day problems, basic 5 why analysis. That's going to be sufficient for the day-to-day troubleshooting. You ask a few why questions. Right now, people are already asking why questions, and then we can identify a solution to reduce the risk. For a more serious problem, this is going to be more like a 15 why plus why analysis. Not all in a straight line, but multiple chains of causes. Now, where we start is still with the basic 5 whys approach. Keep it simple. It's just that we're going to be able to quickly start to expand to reveal other causes, other breakdowns in process. Once again, more ways to reduce that risk going forward. And then you've got your high severity issues. Once again, same approach. We're going to still start off with some basic why questions. That expands to here. And then as we keep asking our whys, getting into all the different breakdowns that had to happen to produce the incident, this is where it gives us, of course, multiple opportunities to solve the problem. So once again, clearly you can see the higher the impact of the organization, the more causes we have the opportunity to reveal, and of course more causes, more opportunities to solve our problem. So this is all done with focusing on just the basic principle of cause and effect and letting the solutions really dictate the output that we want to see from our investigations. Okay, so finally I'll close with just a couple comments on what we actually provide. Think reliability. Clearly I've covered in detail the methodology. So our cause mapping approach, also how we investigate problems, is I think unique and something that we cover in quite a bit of detail within the facilitations and the classes we teach. Clearly a large part of our organization's focus is on providing training on our methodology. So whether it be in a public venue, you can attend one of our public workshops. You can schedule a client site-specific workshop, which, by the way, are customizable. We'll customize that workshop specific to your organization. And then we also provide these workshops live online. So a live instructor that would go through this online becomes another cost-effective way to get the training. We've also incorporated a certification program for those that want to take their investigation skills to the next level. Finally, we also provide support. So if you have an incident, we can get started today. We do a lot of that work remotely via WebEx or another online sharing application. We also will take a look at your RCA program and provide some insight in terms of developing, an effective RCA, an effective and sustainable RCA program. So thanks for your time. If you have any more questions, you can reach me specifically at 281-761-6808, or feel free to send me an email. Thanks.